everyone, my name's Mallory. Welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here today. Recently, I saw that Goodreads released a list of the most read books of the year so far. And so I'm going to be reviewing that list today, and we'll be going through all the different genres, talking about some of the books that people have been reading. I'm going to give you some of my thoughts and tell you what ones are on my radar. So when I pull this list up on my Goodreads, it says the 144 most read books of the 2025 reading challenge so far. And the way that it has it broken up is by genre. So I have made some illustrations of all of the books that are mentioned for each genre. And then I also have some to show you the books that I've read. Maybe I won't recommend all of the books that I've read, but there are a lot on there that I have really enjoyed reading so far. So we're going to talk about what some of those are, maybe some books that have surprised me being on this list, and some that are clearly just amazing books, and I'm glad that they're featured. I want to start with fiction. So each genre has 12 books that are mentioned, and the number one book, if I'm reading this correctly, if I'm interpreting this correctly, it appears to be ranked. So it says this is the number one book, this is the number two, three, four, fifth most read book for the genre. The number one book read in just the general fiction category is The Wedding People. I have not read that one. When I looked this up on my Goodreads, a lot of my friends have read this, and I do remember when this came out because it was an option on my book of the month to get. This came out last July, so it's been about a year, and it looks like there are 644,424 ratings for this book. It has an average 4.11 star rating. I've heard that this one is a very emotional book. You know me, you know that I don't read a lot of just plain old general fiction, and so I think that's why I haven't picked this one up yet. I kind of didn't expect this to be the number one most read fiction book of the year so far. I guess I should have seen it coming because I know that it's been buzzing for about a year. A lot of people have enjoyed it. So that one is on my TBR, but because I've heard it's so emotional, I don't know if I would get to it soon. I think there's a lot of other books, not necessarily in this category, but on this list total that I would pick up before I picked this one up. Some of the books that I have read on this list are Yellowface, Intermezzo, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and Normal People. You already know my review for Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It wasn't my favorite book. I also have talked a little bit about Normal People before because I've talked about how I'm not the biggest fan of Sally Rooney's writing style. I do know, though, that came out with a TV show adaptation. I'm pretty sure. And I would like to watch it. Maybe now that I've read Intermezzo and have grown to appreciate it as I read it, maybe I would read Normal People again. It wasn't bad. I gave it a 4 star. So apparently I did like it in some sense. It just maybe wasn't what I was expecting it to be. One book that I loved, though, was Yellowface. I have not ever read a book quite like it. It is a satire book, so it has a lot of like punchy dialogue, and the plot is a little bit out there. It is about a girl whose kind of frenemy is a writer, and she ends up passing away, and this girl takes credit for the book that she was writing. It was so unique. I really enjoyed it. I listened to it as an audiobook, which I would recommend reading it that way. And when I read it, it was one that I did not want to stop listening to. I just couldn't put it down in a sense. I thought that one was so good. And I have told a lot of people that they should read it. I think because of the unique storyline. I think that's just why I really liked it so much. And it had me gasping a few times, maybe in audacity, maybe in enjoyment. So yeah, I liked that one. A couple others that are on this list that I want to read. I really want to read Remarkably Bright Creatures. Some people that I've talked to, though, have said it's a little bit hard to get into. I think that's kind of where my hesitation lies, is that I don't know, when I hear reviews of people saying it took them a while to get into it, then it gives me a little bit more hesitant, but I've heard it's really good. I've also heard that Blue Sisters is really good. That one seems to be another emotional read, kind of like The Wedding People. That is another one that I feel like has been buzzing a lot. And it came out last year. I guess I totally thought that it came out this year. It came out in 2024. But that's another one, just like The Wedding People, where I've heard about it consistently for a year. Another book that I have that's on my physical TBR that I want to read is All Fours by Miranda July. Not only is it beautiful to look at, it's a beautiful cover, but I really love the George Saunders quote that's on the cover. It says, "A giddy, bold, mind blowing tour de force." It says it's a novel about a woman upending her life. I imagine that it would be kind of like a big journey, maybe. So that one has me intrigued. Some of the other ones I haven't really heard of. I don't think I've heard of Margot's Got Money Troubles. I know who Leanne Moriarty is, but I haven't read any books by her. I don't know really much about Hello Beautiful, although I am seeing that I have it on my want to read. It looks like I'm looking at my Goodreads right now, and two of my friends that are in my book club have read this book and both rated it 5 stars. And whenever they rate a book highly, it's always a good book. You know, do you have those people in your life? Those two are those kind of people for me, where if I see that they read something and it was a 5 stars, then I typically add it immediately to my TBR. The fact that both of them added it, I think that's probably why I added it as well. And then the other one on here is Demon Copperhead. And I recently bought the Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. I'll probably read that one before I would get to this one, but yeah, I just have a harder time picking up general fiction. In the end, I've read 4 out of the 12 of these books. I would highly, highly, highly recommend Yellowface. That one was very, very good. The next genre is historical fiction, and this is going to be one where I was a little bit surprised how many of the books in this category that I had read. Because another part of me would say that I don't really pick up historical fiction all that often either. It's one that I want to get into, but it's just not one that I typically think about when I'm picking up a book. I don't really think, oh, this book's historical fiction. I want to read it because of that. So I was a little surprised when I saw some of these were in it because maybe I wouldn't have classified them as historical fiction, but upon reflection, I could see how it is. The number one book in this category is The Women by Kristen Hanna. If you've heard me yapping away before, you know that I want to read Kristen Hanna's books. Every single one that I have heard of sounds amazing. Everybody's always like crying or they're exclaiming how amazing it is. And so I want to get the hype on that. The Women is one that I don't own. I only own two. I own The Nightingale, which is also on this list, and I own The Great Alone, which is also on this list. So she seems to be really dominating the historical fiction genre right now. Another person that is mentioned on here a couple times is Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I've read Daisy Jones and the Six. Both were very, very good. I think that they were big page turners when I read them, I specifically remember The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo being one that I just couldn't put aside. It was one that I needed to know what happened. It had a really compelling, fast paced story. And there were a lot of twists and turns in it that I didn't expect. Daisy Jones and the Six also was very good, but it wasn't like twisty turny like that. It just had a really driving plot. If you don't know anything about either of those books, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is about an actress. She has a very glamorous lifestyle, and she also is kind of associated with some scandal. So this one is, it's not like a memoir, but in a way it kind of is about her life and these seven husbands that she has had. The fact that she's had seven husbands is a little bit scandalous. And so she's kind of saying, I want the truth to be out there. And she is giving that information away in a like interview format. Another one that has kind of an interview format is Daisy Jones and the Six. That one is about a band and how they have evolved throughout their career. That one also includes like mock interview type setups. That one I know has turned into a TV show. I have not seen it. I've heard it's very good and I would like to, but yeah, I just don't watch a ton of TV shows, I guess. But that one's also good, and I've heard that it is supposed to be like inspired by the band Fleetwood Mac. A book that I absolutely loved that I was so happy was on here was Lessons in Chemistry. That was one of my favorite books that I've read. It is maybe even my favorite historical fiction that I've read. It was just such a touching story in a way that I didn't expect. I really liked the characters in this one. Elizabeth Zott is a fantastically written character. She's unique, she's quirky, she's fun, she is still a strong, independent woman kind of character. And she's a scientist who ends up being a almost host of a TV cooking show. On the other side of this is another scientist who they have a relationship in the story, and it was just such a really moving book. It was one of the kinds of books that I love where I almost feel like I'm in the story. I remember specifically I was maybe folding some laundry, and there were moments where I had to just stop everything I was doing and I was just listening to the book with my mouth agape. I just remember being like, I can't focus on anything else I'm doing right now. Like, what is happening in this story? And yeah, I just love it. It was just fantastic. 10 out of 10. Highly, highly, highly recommend Lessons in Chemistry if you have not read that one. I did really enjoy the audiobook version of that one as well. I have a couple on here that I am wanting to read beyond the Kristen Hanna books. I would really like to read The Berry Pickers, and I actually just purchased this one. I believe it was like at a Goodwill or something where I got it. But it's about a girl who goes missing from some blueberry fields in Maine. This is another one where one of my friends read it and she said it was amazing. And so I trust her every word and I want to read that one now. Another one that I've been wanting to read is The Frozen River. I actually started this one and I didn't finish it. So I need to go back and continue it. I started it last year and it wasn't a book that at the time I could get into. So I'd like to revisit it though. I'm not counting it out. I'm not counting it as a DNF. I still would like to get back to it. Wayward is another one that I have on my list, and I actually got that one through Book of the Month last year as well. And then the other books on here, Small Things Like These and The Briar Club, I don't really know a lot about those ones. I have read another book by Kate Quinn, which was very good. It was called The Diamond Eye. and that one was about a woman sniper in World War II. I really enjoyed that book. So I have really liked Kate Quinn's writing before. Maybe I would enjoy The Briar Club, but yeah, I just don't really know a lot about it. It wasn't on my radar, I guess, when it came out. A lot of these books seem to be more recent releases. So far, not really anything that is over 10 years old. A book that I'm currently reading is James by Percival Everett. I am really liking that one so far. Again, audiobook. I think that I need to consume most of my historical fiction books as audiobooks. I'm sensing a theme here with that and the general fiction, but I'm really liking James so far. It's a retelling of Huckleberry Finn, but from Jim's perspective. Shocked myself with the fact that I have read or am currently reading 4 out of 12 of these books. That one was a shock to me. My big recommendation from this category is Lessons in Chemistry. I love that one so much. Also, I'm sorry if the sound quality is not the best. I'm trying out this new microphone and I feel like I just can't quite get the right spot to put it in. It's just not the best. So I apologize for that. And I'm just going to try to keep going. And I'm hoping that this will sound okay. All right, we're powering through. Here we go. Next category is mystery and thriller. This is a category that I was excited about because I love this genre. I think my love of this genre comes from my grandma, who loves mystery books. I read the Nancy Drew books when I was younger, and now that has transferred into me really enjoying mysteries and thrillers. But keeping that in mind, I DNF'd the number one book on this list, which was The Crash by Frida McFadden. Okay, I have a love hate relationship with Frida McFadden because sometimes I think that her books are really great and interesting books, but then other times I'm like, Frida, what are you doing? What are you saying right now? This doesn't make any sense. And The Crash was a book that I just couldn't get into. I was listening to this on audiobook, and maybe that was the problem. But part of the premise of the story is that she is pregnant. The main character is pregnant. And the main character talks to the baby in her belly, which seems normal. But then in her mind, the baby talks back to her. And it was too much for me. I didn't like that. It really took me out of the book, so much so that I could not finish it. A friend of mine said it was really good, but I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And so I have a love-hate relationship with Frida. Sometimes I like her books because I feel like they're so easy to read. They do really go by quickly, but sometimes that's just too much for me. I did read and enjoy the Housemaid series, which is on this list. I would agree with the fact that the first book in the trilogy is the best one, which makes sense to me why it is ranked at number 2 on this list. I also read The Boyfriend, and I really liked that one by her as well. The other books that she has written that are on this list, I think, yeah, all of them are on my TBR. I just couldn't do The Crash. The God of the Woods is also on my list, and I guess I just didn't realize that it was a mystery and thriller. So now I'm extra excited to get that one. That's one of the ones that is on my like big list of books that I want to read for the year. A friend of mine recommended it to me, and so I do really want to get to that one. Also, my favorite mystery and thriller is on here, and that is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I love that book. It got me back into mystery and thriller books after being in a big slump. I was just kind of getting back into reading, and that is one that I read and I ate it up. It was so good. I left no leftovers. There were no crumbs left when I finished that one. It was thrilling. If you've seen my videos, you know that I am not good at guessing the big twist in the endings of books ever. I don't know if I've ever correctly predicted an ending. That is one that people say, oh, I knew the ending was coming. I did not at all. I thought it was very good, very, very good. I also read None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. That one was good. It was about a woman who meets her birthday twin, which means they have the same birthday, and one of the women has a podcast. The other woman is like, you need to have me on your podcast, and just things evolve from there. That was one that I also really liked. And yeah, unreliable narrator at times, so you don't really know what's going to happen, how it's going to turn out in the end. I have on my TBR is Beautiful Ugly. Now, I don't really know a lot about that one. It says it's a gripping and deliciously dark thriller about marriage. That has me intrigued. I'm a little surprised that no Riley Sager books are on this list. When I think of mystery and thriller, I think of Riley Sager. He's like the king of mystery and thriller. I was kind of surprised to see that none of his books were on uh, this top 12. However, good news for you if you have Kindle Unlimited. 9 out of the 12 are on Kindle Unlimited. You could read those. I would personally recommend starting with The Silent Patient or The Housemaid. Both very good. Very, very good. That puts me at 6 out of 12 read on this list. That might be the most out of all these lists. That might be the best. The best, what? How would you say that? The best proportion? That doesn't seem right. The best odds? I don't know. 50%. 50%. Next category is one of my personal favorites, and that is fantasy books. I was a little surprised to see that I hadn't read more fantasy books, but then I scrolled down and there was a romantasy category, and that makes me think that that's the reason why, is because a lot more of the books that I read are romantasy than just straight up fantasy. But there were some ones on here that I had read. Actually, there's only one on here that I have read, and that is The Song of Achilles. And oh my gosh, what a perfect book. That book was beautiful. I read that one so fast as well, gobbled that up, ate it, left no crumbs as well. I think part of that, though, is because I like Greek mythology, and so for a book to be based on Greek mythology was a winner for me. This story is about Patroclus and Achilles and their friendship, how their friendship grows. So many things happen. I don't want to give anything away, because if you read this book, I think it's best going in not knowing anything about what's going to happen. It was beautiful. It was so well written. The relationship between Patroclus and Achilles, just, it really gets you in the feels. It really gets you in the feels. There are a couple other books on here that I have on my TBR. Those books include The Midnight Library. I've heard that one is very good. I've heard that one's also kind of emotional. A lot of these books are that I've heard of on this list, specifically of fantasy, are emotional books, and so I guess I better kind of buckle up for some emotional reads, because I also want to read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I've heard that one is another one that is just a heartbreaker. I believe that it is about a woman who can live forever and then is cursed to be forgotten. That's what it says when I just looked it up here. That premise sounds interesting to me. The Midnight Library says it's between life and death there is a library. When Nora Seed finds herself in the Midnight Library, she has a chance to make things right. Okay, it says up till now, her life has been filled of misery and regret. So that has me feeling the emotional feels already. I feel like that one's going to be intense. And then The House in the Cerulean Sea, I recently bought that one as well. I think at the same garage sale or Goodwill that I got the berry pickers at. They're actually on the shelf together here, down there. So I have heard that one's good too. It's a little bit cozy. It's like a cozy fantasy. The only cozy fantasy I've read or tried to read is Emily Wilde's Something Something of Flowers. I don't even remember what the whole title is. I couldn't do it. I couldn't finish it. It just was too much. It was too boring for me. So I'd be willing to give The House in the Cerulean Sea a chance, especially because one of the YouTubers that I watch, she recently read it and said it was very good. I'd also like to read Babel by R.F. Kuang. That one I've heard is just very epic. I also recently picked up Mistborn and Tress of the Emerald Sea. Both are by Brandon Sanderson, who I've heard is a phenomenal author, and I would really like to give a try. Have I started them yet, though? No, of course not. You know me, I buy books and then I don't read them. Also, Circe, I feel like I'd like it because it's giving Greek mythology vibes. I don't really know anything else about those other 4 books that are on here. I could do some research, but yeah, I don't really know a lot about them. I was a little surprised though. Only 1 out of 12 is what I've read. That leads to romantasy, which, if you know, you know, you know, romantasy is my genre. I live and breathe for romantasy books. I think because I am such a big fan of fantasy, such a big fan of romance, when you combine them together, it's perfect. It's a perfect genre. And I have read 8 of the 12 that dethrones the mystery and thriller category. Part of the reason that I've read so many of these is because out of the 8 books that I've read, all of them are made up of series that I've read. So Onyx Storm, Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, those are all in the Fourth Wing series. The Empyrean series, I believe, is what it's called. No shock to me that Onyx Storm is #1 because that recently came out. By recent, I mean it came out in like March. And I just feel like everyone who has been reading the Fourth Wing series was waiting for Onyx Storm to come out, which is why it doesn't surprise me that everyone is reading that one right now. I would be curious though. Oh my gosh. It says it has 1,296,912 ratings. I was not expecting that amount of a number. That's insane. That's crazy. I knew the series was super popular, but I didn't know it was that popular. I love the series. I think it's really good. I especially liked the first book. The first book was my personal favorite that's been in the series so far. And I thought that the second one, Iron Flame, I thought was okay. It wasn't the best. It still captured my attention, but Onyx Storm just I thought it was fine. I feel like it's getting to a point in the series though where it's like we've been talking about the same thing for a long time. So, I don't know. It ended on a really interesting cliffhanger. So, I am excited to see the next book that comes out, that's for sure. Other books on here that I've read are from the ACOTAR series, and I absolutely adore that series. It is one of my all-time top favorite reads. It's one of my all-time favorite series. And I am not surprised to see it on here. I feel like all of the romantasy girlies have read that series. Whether they've liked it or not is up to them. But I love it. And I am, yeah, not shocked that it's on here. I feel like it's one of the biggest romantasy series. Maybe the biggest romantasy series following Fourth Wing, apparently. Um, so yeah, I've read all four of those books. My favorite, I think so far, it's so hard to say. It's probably A Court of Silver Flames. I really loved that one. And I also saw Sarah J. Mass. She made a little video on her Instagram that seemed to be teasing more ACOTAR books are coming. So yeah, I'm excited about that. Um, I really liked the first one too. And the second one, A Court of Mist and Fury, was also very good. The only one that I wasn't super into was A Court of Wings and Ruin. Not my favorite, but I respect it. I respect it. The other books on here are ones that I have on my TBR. Quicksilver, I've heard is super good. I've heard that One Dark Window is amazing. That's a duology with another book. I've heard they're both fantastic. Serpent and the Wings of Night. I've heard that one's also very good. These are all books that I know I would enjoy. And then the Zodiac Academy is the next big series that I want to start after finishing Throne of Glass. The reason why I want to wait to finish Throne of Glass before I start that is because I feel like it is one of those series that I'm going to want to dedicate a lot of time to. I'm going to want to read them over and over, like one after the other. So I'm waiting until I finish Throne of Glass so that I can dedicate myself to the Zodiac Academy. Next up is another category that I wasn't sure if I would have a lot read from. That is the science fiction category. And this one was riddled with classics. So I have read a lot of the classics that are on here. I've read Animal Farm, and I love that book. I think it is so ahead of its time, and I think it's still relevant now, which is why I think George Orwell is such a fascinating writer. I also listened to a audiobook adaptation of 1984. It had Andrew Garfield in it. That was very good. I don't think it was like the whole book. I think it cut out a lot of narration because it was kind of like supposed to be a like first person acting type story. I don't know how well to describe it. It was like if you were watching a movie, a lot of times, okay, I guess there are some movies that have narrators, but imagine a movie that doesn't have a narrator. You're just seeing people interact and no one is saying they went down the street and then they did this thing and then they did this thing and he said this and she said this. It was like that, but if you weren't watching it, you were just listening to it. I also recently read The Handmaid's Tale. That was one that I read this year. It was a classic that I felt like I needed to read before my life was over, and now felt like a good time to read it. It was good. It was a little over my head at some points, just the language was a little unapproachable at times, but the storyline I felt was compelling. And then, of course, I feel like everyone reads Fahrenheit 451 when they're in high school. I like that one too. I like Ray Bradbury. I think that he's doing interesting things. And that one is interesting because it's a banned book, and I feel like that is pretty relevant to today's time. Another book on here that I have read is The Measure, and I was talking to a friend recently about how the concept of the measure is so interesting, but in some spots in the book, it just falls a little flat at times. The concept is that everyone gets a box on their doorstep one day where there is a string that holds the length of their life. So the big question is, would you open your box or not? And how do you as a society deal with the fallout that comes from a situation like that happening? It brought up some really interesting conversations in my book club. However, there were some moments where I was like, it's losing me a little. I still thought it was good and I would recommend reading it. Also, I'm realizing that I forgot to give my recommendation for my romantasy read from that category. And uh, my recommendation 100% is the ACOTAR series, Court of Thorns and Roses. Love that series so much. Back to science fiction now. So, yeah, I recommend reading The Measure. I thought it was good. Almost all the other books on here, though, were not ones that I had added to my TBR. I have Dark Matter by Blake Crouch on there. Again, a friend of mine that I trust and take all of her recommendations. She said that one was really good. So that's on there. It is, let's see. It says that it's kind of like a thriller. Oh, this sounds interesting. It says that it's like one night this guy is walking home and he's looking forward to spending a quiet evening with his wife and his son, and then someone like abducts him. He wakes up, and it's like it says, in this world he's woken up to, Jason's life is not the one he knows. His wife is not his wife. His son was never born. Is it this world or the other that's the dream? That sounds super fascinating. I feel like I'm going to have to read that one soon. All the other ones on here, though, I don't really know. I know what Project Hail Mary is because I just saw there's a TV series coming out about it. I Who Have Never Known Men, that's number one. I don't know anything about that one. I've never even heard of it. I've never heard of Orbital. Okay, I Who Have Never Known Men says deep underground, 40 women live imprisoned in a cage. Yeah, I don't know Orbital, and I don't know All Systems Red. I've heard of Parable of the Sower, and The Ministry of Time is on my TBR. I have heard that one is a good read. It has 3.59 average rating. It's a time travel romance, a spy thriller, a workplace comedy, and an ingenious exploration of the nature of power and the potential for love to change it all. Sounds exactly like something I would like. So I'm definitely going to be checking that one out. My recommendation, I'm going to say for science fiction is, I want to say Animal Farm, but I feel like that one, because it's a classic, could not be for everyone. So I'm going to say The Measure is my recommendation for this category. Horror is up next, and talk about a category that I haven't read a lot from, is horror. I have read one book from this category, and that is Frankenstein. That's another one that I feel like a ton of people have to read when they are in high school or college. I know that I read it in college, and it's a classic. I do feel like it's one of those ones where everyone knows the story or thinks they know the story, maybe. These other books, though, I haven't really heard of very many at all. I'm seeing the Riley Sager book here, and so that makes me think, are his books classified as horror? Or are his books classified as mystery slash thriller? Maybe horror because it's in this genre. And this is one that I have not heard from him. Is this his new book? No. This is from 2020. Interesting that people are reading it now, though. I wonder what is sparking that. He's had two recent books since then. With a Vengeance is his most recent one, and it just came out. I'm surprised that one's not on there instead. But yeah, I've never heard of this one. I'm curious, though. I'm intrigued. There are a couple other authors I've heard of on this list, but the books themselves are not necessarily ones that I have heard of. I've heard of Grady Hendrix. There's like a haunted house, How to Sell a Haunted House, I think is one of their books. And then obviously I've heard of Stephen King. A book that is on my TBR from this list is Hidden Pictures. And when I was looking up the books for this, I was like, huh, I don't even remember what this one was. But now that I'm looking at it, one of the characters' names is Mallory, which is probably why I put it on my TBR, if I'm being honest. The number one is We Used to Live Here. I'm guessing it's about a haunted house. Oh, it says that it is supposed to be a Netflix movie soon. And it's about two homeowners whose lives are turned upside down when the house's previous residents unexpectedly visit. Two books that I haven't read but have heard of. I've heard of Bunny and I've heard of Night Bitch. Those are two that either YouTubers I follow have read or a friend of mine have read. I've heard those ones are kind of intense. So, yeah, not a lot on here that I have on my TBR because there's only so much that I can handle. I guess my recommendation, because I've only read one of these books on this list, has to be Frankenstein. I don't know why, but sometimes whenever we refer to Frankenstein, we say Frankenstein. My husband and I do. I don't know why. Also, how often are we talking about Frankenstein? I don't know. Next up, another one of my favorite genres, romance. I love. I was surprised by this category though, because I haven't read a lot of the books on this category. I was shocked. Number one is Deep End. That, not shocking, that fact. But I am shocked that I haven't read that book yet because it's by my favorite author, Allie Hazelwood. I love her so much. All of her romance books I love. And so, yeah, I can't believe I haven't read that one yet. I have been saying that I want to read it for so long. And so I need to just do it. Finally, do it. Another one on here, I just read a book by Emily Henry. I just read Book Lovers, and I'm seeing that another one of her books, Funny Story, is on here. I have not read that one. It's on the TBR. Another author that is big on this list is Abby Jimenez, and she has such a big following. Her fans are dedicated. I've read Part of Your World and I liked that one a lot. I haven't read anything else by her. I need to get back to it. She's got two others on here, Just for the Summer and Say You'll Remember Me. I feel like both of those came out pretty recently, especially one of them. I think Say You'll Remember Me came out this year. And then Just for the Summer maybe came out last year. Um, but yeah, both of those I've heard are good. I think that she's one of those authors that's like can't do any wrong. Recently, I listened to Lights Out. That one was a little bit different for me because it was a dark romance. So definitely check the trigger warnings before you read that one. But I listened to it and it had a male main character voice actor and it had a female main character voice actor. And I just think that every romance book needs to do that because that was amazing. It was perfect. So yeah, I liked that one a lot. I haven't read Wildside by Elsie Silver. I've started the Chestnut Springs series by Elsie Silver and I like that one. But I've heard that this series is good too. I read Butcher and Blackbird, but did not read Scythe and Sparrow. Butcher and Blackbird wasn't my favorite. Just wasn't really my thing. And so, yeah, I probably won't read Scythe and Sparrow. I did read Twisted Love a long time ago. Anna Huang, one of my friends, has just finished reading that whole series and she really enjoyed it. Just not one that I've come back to yet. I think that there's a lot of other romances that are kind of calling my name. And so I haven't really gotten back to that series at all. Then First Time Caller and The 7 Year Slip are both two books that I really want to read soon. I was having a little bit of FOMO because so many people, when they got First Time Caller from Book of the Month, really loved it. And I didn't get it. So I was having some FOMO and ended up doing it as like an add on semi recently. So I have that one now and can read it. And then also, I really want to read The 7 Year Slip because I've heard that one is fabulous. It is about a girl who has a roommate that's like from the past or something, like from 7 years ago. That could be wrong, but that's kind of what I gathered from the stuff I've heard. I didn't want to spoil too much of it for myself, so I didn't really read a lot into it. My recommendation for this category, I think I'm going to go with two. I think I'm going to do two recommendations. First is going to be Lights Out because that was such an amazing audiobook experience. I 100% recommend, but I only recommend if you are interested in dark romance or you know that you like dark romance. That being said, since that's not for everyone, my other recommendation would be Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez because that one was just lighthearted. It was fun. It was like a dessert book. Next up is another category that I love, and that is the young adult YA books. I thought I would have a lot read in this category too, but almost the entirety of this category is the Throne of Glass series, and you know that I haven't finished that yet. So, number one, though, is Sunrise on the Reaping. That book was fabulous. I'm not surprised that it's number one because it came out this year, and I feel like it is a book that could appeal to everyone. It can appeal to people that have been Hunger Games fans for years. It can appeal to people that are just getting into the Hunger Games series. I feel like anyone would like it. And it was just a super well written book about a character that deserved to have some depth. It was a character where you knew that Haymitch had this giant backstory, and we got bits and pieces of it from the original trilogy, but not much at all. And I love how Suzanne Collins has been diving into characters outside of Katniss Everdeen. This is my favorite series of all time, The Hunger Games is. And so to get more Hunger Games books now has just been such a gift. So I loved that one. And then like I said, three, four, five, six, seven of the 12 books are from the Throne of Glass series. I've read Throne of Glass, I've read Crown of Midnight. I am next on to Air of Fire. I've talked about the Throne of Glass series a lot recently, so I'm not going to get super into it. But for a little tiny background, I wasn't a huge fan of the first two books. Then I read Assassin's Blade, and now I am back into the series. So I need to get onto Air of Fire. Two other books from this are in the Powerless trilogy by Lauren Roberts. So Powerless and Reckless are together in that series. I've been wanting to read that, but yeah, there's just more series that are YA that I'd rather read first. One of those would be The Crimson Moth, which has its second book in this list, which is The Rebel Witch. So I've been wanting to get to that too. And then, of course, final one in here is The Hunger Games, which I love that people are rereading that. I think I might join that reread as well because after reading Sunrise on the Reaping, I want to get into that again so badly. Now that I have some like background to some of those characters in the trilogy, it would be fun to do a reread knowing what I know now, especially because I also recently read Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So that would provide some context too. This one is easy for me. My recommendation obviously is Sunrise on the Reaping. You won't find a more five-star book anywhere. Next category is memoirs. I have read two of these. I've read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy and Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Both of those books were fabulous. I read Crying in H Mart physically, which I felt like was a good experience. I think I've heard that she narrates the audiobook though, and I'm sure that that would bring some depth to it. I listened to I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, and that book was such a powerful book. I was blown away by the information that she shared and how she lived through these different experiences in her life was so powerful to me that she made it through such a challenging, difficult time. I feel like sometimes it's only older people that put out memoirs. And so for her, who is still a young person, to put out one, I feel like the kind of misconception would be what does she have to share? There's so much packed into that book. I really enjoyed that one. A book on here that I really want to read is The House of My Mother by Sherry Frankie. I've heard that book goes hard, that it is insane. So I need to read that one. That is top on my list of books to read. A lot of these other memoirs just aren't really calling to me. I've heard that the Matthew Perry one is very good, but the other ones just aren't screaming my name. I think I've heard about the Matthew McConaughey one though for like 5 years in a row. Like people love him. People are still reading that book. And yeah, I have not watched Gilmore Girls, so that one wasn't hasn't really called to me. The other ones just aren't a priority. I'd rather read some other books on my TBR before I were to check out one of these memoirs. But I would highly, highly recommend I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. That one was a 10 out of 10. The next two categories are also going to maybe be a little bit boring for you because they are not categories that I've read a lot from or have a lot of thoughts on because they're just not my preferred genres. Would I like to be a little bit more well read in these two areas? Of course. But there are other books that I am trying to get to first. Next category is history and biography. The number one here is Everything is Tuberculosis, and that is a book that I would like to read. It's by John Green, who, if you don't know who John Green is, I feel like he has had such an interesting journey. He has written YA fiction like The Fault in Our Stars, but he's also written like science and nonfiction books like this one. So I just think that's such an interesting variety that he can do that as the same guy. I would like to read Everything is Tuberculosis. I've heard it's interesting. I do kind of feel like, though, it might make me more paranoid and it might not be good for me to read. Also, have been wanting to read The Wager, which is subtitled as A Story of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder. I just think that those three things sound fascinating going together. The Small and the Mighty and Killers of the Flower Moon also sounded interesting to me. I put those ones on my TBR, and The Devil in the White City. Those three, no, excuse me, those four are ones that, as I was reading through this category of these books, I put those on there. I thought they would be interesting reads. I don't really have a recommendation for this one. I guess to myself, I'm going to recommend reading Everything is Tuberculosis. The last but not least category is general nonfiction, and there are a lot of books on this one that are on my TBR. So those would be things like The Let Them Theory, that's actually number one. I've heard a lot from Mel Robbins. I feel like I've seen a lot of clips of interviews with her, like on Instagram Reels, and she always sounds like she knows what she's talking about. I've heard that this book is kind of one that could go either way. Maybe you see it as really helpful, or maybe you see it as a little unnecessary. I would be willing to give it a shot, as well as Atomic Habits. I feel like I started reading that one and didn't finish it. I also have seen The Service Berry, which is a little bit more about like the natural world. I've seen that one on shelves before, so that one is on my TBR as well. Same with The Art Thief. But the two books on here that I really want to read soon, the first one is The Anxious Generation. I have had a lot of friends that have read that book and have said that it is so eye-opening into the way that our society has shifted into being more um, technology focused. The subtitle to this one is How the Great Rewiring of Childhood Caused an Epidemic of Mental Illness. Just sounds like an interesting topic. And I feel like, as somebody who would like to have children someday, that would be a good read to kind of think about those things on a deeper level before I become a parent. I've heard a lot of people that are parents have read it and have felt very heard by the content that is in it. Another book that I would really like to read is The Body Keeps Score. I've heard that that one is another one similar to Anxious Generation and Everything is Tuberculosis on being a very eye-opening topic of a book. It is about how your brain and your mind and your body respond and internalize different traumatic elements. So maybe you have trauma from XYZ and your body doesn't forget that. I think that this would be another book that would just really clue me in to a topic that I don't really know a lot about. So that's one that's been on my list for a while. A friend of mine recommended both this one and The Anxious Generation. She had read both of them and had said that they were super, super good. So I'm going to give those as my two recommendations to myself that I need to read those ones soon. Well, that is all of the books on this 144 list of most read books of 2025 so far by Goodreads users. I counted them up and I have read 36 of 144. I would love to know in the comments what you have read. I would like to say that I will read at least five more of these books before the year is over, but it would be unreasonable for me to give more than that because 144 books is a lot of books. Please let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you recommend any of them, especially if it's ones that I haven't read. Let me know, what do I need to read next? And what do you think about these books that are on this list? These are the top books that people are reading right now. So give me your thoughts on those. I feel like there are a lot of really good books on here. There are also a lot of books on here that I haven't read or don't even know about. So drop in the comments some words on some of those different books. You decide which question you want to answer. I hope that you have a great rest of your day today, that you have happy reading, and I hope that I will see you next time. Bye.